I have been in the world of musical and theatrical artistry all my life. Um, both my parents are artists. I'm blessed to be raised by artists and then be able to be supported as an artist in the field by both my parents. My dad is uh, instrumentalist mainly, but he's also a jazz vocalist and a conductor. Grew up with a wonderful jazz combo rehearsing in my living room every week.
Wow.
So yeah, my first experience with a musical was in the pit. My dad was conducting Annie, and I was a very little girl. So then my mom, so dad's experience is mostly classical and jazz. He does church music. He does some gospel, a lot of choral church music. He also happens to be a preacher, a pastor. So all of
Wow.
that.
Does a lot of things.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And is a chaplain now.
Okay. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
they be doing a lot. And then wonder why I have 1,000 jobs. My mom, her background is English and theater. So she graduated from South Carolina State University as a part of the Henderson Davis Players, one of the first Black theater troupes to be a part of there was a Yale intensive program
Hmm.
that they were able to be a part of back in the 70s. So that was great. Mom's actor. She does musical theater. She sings gospel music, sings a lot of like soul music. So I was around all of that all my life.
Yeah, how are you going to
Split,
avoid it? I can't even imagine like how
no,
you're not going to want to take that path. I mean, either you're going to completely reject it or you're going to love it so much and say, I have to spend the rest of my life surrounded by
right.
this.
So because I'm an only child and my parents separated when I was a teenager, but during my childhood years, we sang at home all the time. And as you know, with a lot of gospel music, with a lot of sort of folky, down home music, it's three parts. You get in, you find somebody find the root, somebody find the third, and somebody find the fifth. So we had our ensemble set. I was a soprano, my mom was an alto, my daddy was a tenor. And so we were always singing, we were always making music. There was always something musical around the house. So that was where I got my start in church. My parents, they started at separate churches and then they came together, but my mom was always directing plays at church. My dad, before he became a pastor, was the minister of music. My mom directed choirs, and they were out in the community doing things as well. I went to a performing arts high school,
Did you say
Davidson Fine
where?
Arts.
Did you say where you grew up? What area?
Nope, Davidson Fine Arts in Augusta, Georgia. That's where
Okay.
I'm from.
Okay.
So um, I went to high school there and decided in high school, I'd always known that something musical, something artistic would be a part of my life because how not? With my parents being my parents and my experience being my experience, all of my parents' siblings on both sides are musical. Both of my grandmothers sang. My maternal grandmother did quartet singing in the gospel style for a long time
Wow.
and toured that way.
It's such a
Yeah.
deep tradition in your family that just
Mm-hmm.
extends out to all these branches. That's amazing. That sounds like such a like a rich childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And and we can edit this out if you don't want to talk about it.
Yeah,
And
no
no, we can
worries.
always do that. But I do want to ask, it's very interesting to me that you're talking about your childhood and it's so great and you're painting this beautiful picture and then you just drop in my parents got divorced when I was a teenager, but it's said in such a um like yeah, it's a part of it, but I had this great childhood. And I think a lot of people when they talk about something like that, it's like, and then this is where my life changed, and this is, you know what I'm saying, how people talk
Mm-hmm.
about that, but you don't seem to carry that. And I wonder why. Like when you talk about that time period, was
Therapy.
that a lot? Was that
Therapy is how I can look at my childhood and see the joy. I have done a lot of work to heal my inner child. When there is divorce, there is generally turmoil somewhere in the life. And there was that. And as an only child, I'm it. So, of course, I'm experiencing it all. And so I will say that some of my saving grace during that time was being at a fine arts high school, being able to sing every day, being able to go to my musical theater classes and my acting classes and just experience art and express myself. Um yeah, I struggled. And my dad and I we had our time um where I wasn't too pleased with him. But you know, we both as a little kid I was a daddy's girl. And so in getting older, it was really difficult not to be in that space. And we found ways to reconcile, and a lot of that on my end, I haven't actually talked to my dad about it, a lot about what happened in the in between for him.
Mm-hmm.
But on my end, it's been a lot of therapy and a lot of reminding my inner child that I am here to parent you now, and I'm here to keep you safe. So you're good. We can operate in joy. We can operate in gratitude. So yeah, there were some dark days, but I will say, when I called on either of my parents, they were there. And so I think that was very helpful. It wasn't, there were questions and there were things that were left unresolved on my end. But if I called and I had a need, even though my dad wasn't in the house, he would do his best to provide and meet that need.
Mm.
I lived in the house with my mom, and so I saw my mom. I think part of my hard work comes from seeing my mother. When my parents divorced, my mom was a teacher. She and she worked in the after school program, and so it was like a whole other job because Lord help. um After school is a whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then she taught in the summers too. She did enrichment in the summers just to make sure we were good. I didn't realize, I'm 36 now. I didn't realize that we were like strongly middle class until a couple years ago. I was like, oh, I had everything I needed. I was great. Life was wonderful. And I was like, oh, wait, hold on. Let me examine these things. Perhaps we weren't as well off as I thought we were. But even when my parents were together, I never wanted for anything. Once my parents separated, if there was something that I wanted and they could not provide, they taught me how, my mom especially taught me how to work for it and how to figure out a way, a means by which to achieve it for myself. And I really think that helped to push me in a way and help me as an adult to be able to go after the things that I desire and not give up on them easily. Because it was like, okay, if you want this thing, you're going to work for it. And that's what adulthood is. You got to work for it. Nothing comes without a price. And so the way that you pay it is your own way now. But nothing comes without a price. Yeah. So there was turmoil in that part of my life, but I don't tend to dwell on that because of the fact that, one, I was surrounded by family, both by blood and by choice, that helped to rear me. I was surrounded by my art. And as an adult, I've done the work. to get my healing. And so I think those things are important. Surrounding yourself with people who are supportive of you, your own community, whether that be by blood or by choice, and making sure that you do the work to heal, because it's not easy. And I don't remember who I was talking with and who told me this, but when we talk about something like mindfulness, we think that mindfulness and being in gratitude and this sort of thing is just being okay, being well at all times. No, it is knowing that there are going to be highs and there are going to be lows, but also understanding that it will be okay. And so I think that is part of the learning that I've had from my childhood, with having parents who were together. My parents were together up until I was a freshman in high school. And so during freshman year, they separated, and in sophomore years when I went to my high school. And it's interesting because most people had been there since sixth grade. And so
you're stepping into this environment that other people know each other, right? Like they've been there. Oh, and
yeah,
first off, just, I want to say thank you so much for taking the time to share this. I
yeah,
think what you're saying is so valuable. And I just am struck by, here you are going into this transition, this really important time in your life. And then this other thing is happening. And now, just the little bit of communication I've had with you, I'm just so amazed. I look at you and the joy that you bring and who you are. And you keep saying, I did the work. I did the work. And looking at someone like you, I think that you are a living example of what somebody can be when they do the work. And
yeah,
so I just want to say thank you so much for sharing that.
absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. I did high school. Actually, let me go back. There were two of us that were new, sophomore year
Mm-hmm.
of high school. And my best friend, who became my best friend, and we were very close for quite some time. Megan and I were like this because we came in together and we were the new girls. And we actually both were singer actors. So that helped as well. But my story, okay, high school, then I went to college. I went in as a vocal performance major at Furman University in Greenville, South Carolina. I graduated with a good degree in music education. Part of that being, when you come from a family of workers, there's sometimes this, mm, you sure performance? And I remember during my sophomore year, one of my aunts sat me down. She said, you sure? And I was like, okay, well, even if I get this education degree, I can still perform. So let me do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so did the education degree.
So
Had
wait, did
some
you not see yourself as a teacher originally? You wanted to perform and you got the education degree as like I'm going to get a job. Like I'm going to get a job, like I'm going to have security. I'm just wondering, what did your
I didn't
dreams
want
look like?
anything to do with teaching. Nothing. Both my parents were educators. And I saw, especially in the public education system, what that looked like.
Mm.
And I didn't want a thing to do with it. I did get to experience my dad, while I was in high school, he was the choral director at our local HBCU, Payne College in Augusta. And so I got to experience that a little bit. And I was like, okay, that's cool. I like his schedule. And then, but I went on. My thought was that I would teach high school music if it came to it. That's what I did my teaching internship in. And I left undergrad and went to go get a graduate degree in vocal performance because miss me with the teaching. Let me get back on stage.
Mm.
I will say Interestingly enough, both in my undergraduate degree and my grad school degree, I've always been a fighter. Um,
You don't say. You don't say.
yeah, it's just who I am. I've been that way since I was a, a young one. I fought my mother because I had picture books about Malcolm X and Ida B. Wells and
Mm,
Martin Luther King that she didn't make me study these people, but there was a seed planted.
mm-hmm.
And so I was always talking about what was right and what was just. Even as like a middle schooler, I remember I got in trouble. I was in my gifted class. I was the only young Black person in my gifted classroom, in McDuffie County, Georgia, small country place. Um, and I got in trouble because I was talking. And I said, well, pardon me. I was talking to someone. How is it that I am in trouble? And the person that shared in conversation with me is not.
Mm.
And so I got in trouble for back talking me.
How old were you when you were?
I was in seventh grade.
Mm.
And seventh grade is when I met my lifelong, well, I'd met her before, but my lifelong best friend joined me in the gifted classroom. We were the two Black girls there. And so she and I are still friends to this day. Her children are my god kids.
Oh, that's awesome.
Um, and she's like, Brittany, just be quiet. I was like, no, it's not right. It is not right. That person is talking as well.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm going to get in trouble, so should they. So this is my story. This is my song all my life long. So in college, in grad school, because I always wanted to sort of push the envelope, I didn't have the easiest time. But I got my degrees. And
Do you want
I
to give
moved.
us like one story of what you mean by I didn't have the easiest time? Because I'm really liking your stories. So give us something from
Yeah.
college. Give us an anecdote.
So college, I got put out of my first internship. And the teacher said it was because I was doing other work on the during the time that I was supposed to be at the school, and that my relationships with the students was inappropriate, and so I was not welcome to come back to her classroom.
Mm.
Well, she never said anything to me. Yes, I planned. I used planning time to plan another thing. And I said, well, I didn't know that she needed me to do something else. And they're like, well, she said you can't come back. The other side of that was what now as a full adult looking back on that was that there were, oh, I was in Spartanburg, South Carolina. There were several young Black students in the class, and they really took to me. And I saw my um, mentor teacher not really liking that.
Mm.
It's like they're always talking to you. Yeah, they in that time they likely had not seen a choral teacher that looked like them.
Mm.
And I was young, spunky, and they were drawn to that. And that was problematic because it wasn't something that the mentor teacher could sort of control. And so I am certain that that had a great deal to do with it. The inappropriate relationships with the students. Because I wasn't doing nothing but talking and encouraging and trying to find a space of meeting with them. One of the cornerstones of my teaching style is relationship, and that is because oftentimes in my like even in undergrad They're like, oh, you have this wonderful voice. Oh, you have this wonderful gift. But there were only maybe a couple of professors who tried to actually get to know me as opposed to making assumptions. And so I thought that relationship building is one of the things that was in the textbooks, people. And so I was like,
Right?
okay, I got to build these relationships. And these are the students who are drawn to me
It's
just because
it's innately
we,
in you. You know that this is what
right,
it's supposed to be like. Yeah.
right. So that was one thing. The funnier story is we did a Mall on the Night Visitors.
Mm.
Um, and we all know that there's a line in the opera that says, um, the three kings are here, and one of them's black. And so our opera director planned to have one of the young people playing the three kings in blackface.
Oh, wow.
I wasn't in the show,
Hmm.
um, but a dear friend of mine was, and she said, "Britt, I don't know what to do. They're planning on putting him in blackface," and she was the only black person in the cast. And so we come to Britt because Britt likes to fight the power. So I went to the professor. I said, "Hey, that's not cool, professor. You shouldn't do that." And he was like, "Oh, plenty of it is standard in opera." And I said, "Number one, no, it's not. Number two, even if it were, why would you want to be on the wrong side?"
Mm.
He said, "Well, this is what we're doing." Well, I may or may not have called the local news.
Oh. You
Um,
said this was a funnier story. I mean, it is like, in a way, the energy is different, but oh goodness, keep going, keep going. Okay.
yeah, I will just say that there was no more blackface.
Good for you.
And so that is sort of the here comes this girl, this child, if
Oh
she comes.
man.
But if I see injustice, I refuse to not say something.
Hmm.
Um,
Now, how did you feel at the time when you were in that role? Like in retrospect, you're talking about yourself like very positively, right? Like I would not accept this, and it's very light. But when this was happening to you, when you
mhm.
were in college and having to stand up for these things and you know be disruptive, to the system, was that difficult for you at the time?
Surprisingly, no. It just was what had to be done. Um, I remember um, as a child driving past the local university and seeing members of the Ku Klux Klan in their regalia in front of the university protesting. I remember when I was on the way to middle school, my mom sitting me down and having a conversation and saying, "Hey, you went to a smaller school. You were really close friends with some people whose skin didn't look like yours. When you get to middle school, they may not speak to you anymore." And they didn't. um, so I
Hmm.
I don't think that it was an option for me to tread lightly.
Hmm.
Um, when I was in grad school, I on my final recital, I wanted to do is it had to be a song recital. I wanted to do a set of African American spirituals,
Hmm.
and the answer was no. And I was fighting, I was fighting, I was fighting. And I remember Dr. Andre Thomas pulled me to the side. He said, "Brittany, I need you to graduate. They're not going to give. I need you to graduate." And so I said, "All right,
Andre Thomas was at this school. So you were in Florida State?
yes."
And so he's there and he's
Mm-hmm.
Andre Thomas, and this is still happening to you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He said, "I need you to graduate." I said, "Okay, what about?" I said, "What if I do a song cycle?" He said, "I think that'll work." And so I did Margaret Bond's Three Dream Variations. Simply because, first of all, there's gonna be a Black artist on my recital. That's just it. Yes, I need to do some Italian, I need to do some French, I need to do some German, but I also have an English option. So we're gonna do something by a Black woman.
Mm.
And so I did the Three Dream Variations, and they really, thankfully, I'm thankful for the poetry of Langston Hughes, because they really were able to encapsulate feelings, my thoughts, and my dreams. Um, yeah. And so I actually am thankful that Doc sat me down and said, hey, look, graduate.
Hmm.
You don't have to fight. Graduate. Um, and I've taken that with me. You don't have to fight. Because I'm always ready. Always, always. And I will hear that sometimes. You don't have to fight.
Hmm.
You don't have to.
How do you
But
choose? How do you choose when to fight and when not to fight?
it's it's a balance of safety, risk, and yeah, safety, risk, and who's affected.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when it strongly affects the greater good, I'm going for it. And I found sort of quieter ways to do it as I get older. But if I must, I will do it loudly.
Mm.
But it's really about when they talk about equality, equity, and justice. When justice is involved, that's when it's most important to me.
Mm.
Yeah.
So you graduate with
Hmm.
your master's, right? And this is
Hmm.
in vocal performance.
Yeah.
And then what happens?
So I moved to Washington D.C. Um, my my voice teacher at the time, she talked to me about New York. I didn't want to go to New York. New York is dirty and there are lots of people. As I said, I'm from Augusta, Georgia. I did a lot of my growing in a small town called Deering, Georgia, in McDuffie County. My grandparents had a farm when I grew up. And so all these people, I need some space. I need a little something here and there. New York is a no. Well, what about Chicago? It's too cold. No. I said, look, I have a friend, my best friend, seventh grade.
Is this Megan?
She's her, no. So Megan is from 10th grade. Seventh grade best friend is Nicosia.
Nicosia. Okay.
Uh-huh. Nicosia was in DC at Howard University finishing her pharmacy degree. And so she had a year left. I was like, okay, she's got a year. I can move to DC. We can live together. That can help me transition. So I moved to DC. I think my second day here, I went on an audition. Um, because, very important thing. When I graduated, I said I wouldn't sing again. I'm sick of this. I'm tired. Because there was so much fight.
Mm.
Fight, fight, fight. And no, so when it came time for me to defend um, in grad school, I had to do, we had to do translations. I, I am not good with learning language. I now know that I have ADHD. I did not know then. I'm not good with learning language. I barely passed. Um, I remember when it was time for my um, before my recital, the recital jury, there was one piece that I was struggling with a little bit. And during the jury, I prayed and prayed that they wouldn't ask for it. Found out later my voice teacher had told them to ask for it.
Hmm.
She won't pass if you ask her for this. Ask her for it. And so, tenet two my of the way I teach, I do not believe that teaching through trauma is necessary. A lot of people who are my age and older, we had to learn through so many traumatic experiences. Like teachers just, I'm going to be mean because I'm a teacher and I can be mean. And that's what the people above me did to me. But is it necessary? Now, am I strict? Yes. Do I hold the standard? Absolutely. But it is not necessary for students to incur trauma at the collegiate level
Hmm.
or in their education at all to learn. Um, no,
That's
it just, it's not right. Why should we do that? So
mm. It's a
the
pout.
trauma,
Sorry, I just
no, go ahead.
first off, I'm sorry. I'm over here getting emotional. I just can't. It stole my breath when you told me that your teacher said for you to do that song so you wouldn't pass. It's like
Yeah.
it's just and I agree with you about the trauma thing, and I feel like there's a power like when you get to the collegiate level, and you please tell me what you think about this, but there's that I'm a college professor. I know what I'm doing, and the power gets in the way,
Mm-hmm.
and you forget how fragile people are.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just I feel like it's one of the things we should learn when we're going to become a teacher, when we're going to become an educator, just like a therapist. You have to learn ethics. You have to learn, and we know we are not taught that. And now,
No,
especially in this era, we are not prepared
no.
to take care of these kids, and we're caretakers of them, not just teachers. They don't just show up and we give them
Mm-mm.
information, they leave. So yeah, so I just wondered if you what you thought about that, as far as is it a power thing? Is it, where do you think that comes from? Why is this happening? Is it so acceptable? And maybe you already said it, that well, my teacher did this to me and they don't know any better, or what do you think?
I think it's both and. Um, there's the dynamic of passing down the same behaviors. This is what I had to endure, and it made me stronger, they think. um, and so this is what I'm going to do to you, and it will make you stronger. And there's this, I have arrived. So you must prove that you have the wherewithal to arrive even at a similar place
Hmm.
to where I stand. So it's both. It's the passing of trauma, which we as humans, when we are not healed from a thing, that's what we tend to do. And it's this sort of harnessing of power, harnessing and keeping. It also creates this dynamic of fear, um, wherein I am the professor, I know everything, you know nothing, and there's nothing that you can contribute. And it helps people to feel large, it helps them to feel intelligent. And at it's often at the word isn't coming.
Expense or
Yes, it's often at the expense of the student. What I don't think a lot of people really realize um, is that the brain doesn't finish developing until 25. We also, when we are at the collegiate level, we are taking these young people in after they have been under the roofs of their parents or some caretaker. for however many years. They are now in a space where they have newfound freedom, but also newfound confusion, because many of them come not knowing how to manage a schedule, not knowing how to study, or how to set aside time for for care of self, even like bathing.
Hmm.
I didn't get up and down. I didn't have time. You'll never know how many times I was late because I needed to take a shower. Well, honey, get up earlier.
Hmm.
But my alarm is set for such and such a time. I don't care. Set the alarm for an earlier time so that since you're showering or whatever in the morning, you have time. And then you can eat something so that you have nourishment, and you can get your tail to class on time so you can learn.
Like, we don't teach that as a priority,
No.
like get up with enough time that you allow yourself to
Mm-hmm.
be able to relax and nourish yourself. Oh yeah, that's yes.
So one of the things that we often did when I was at Howard, and I was, even before I was leading the area, we would have intensive at the beginning of the year. And in intensive, yes, we talked about singing, acting, dancing. We did academic work. But we also talked about this is how you manage a college schedule. And first year students, you must go to that workshop. And even I think sometimes we get so caught up in teaching the material that we forget about the human that's supposed to be learning the material. And yeah, it can get difficult because you've got stuff you've got to do. But when we look back at from an educator standpoint, if their basic human needs aren't met, they can't learn anyway. And so a lot of that, I don't like the way the education system is set up when it comes to collegiate teaching. The collegiate arena is the only place where you do not have to have any actual training as a teacher. So, a lot of folks who are teaching in the collegiate arena, yes, they are the ones who have achieved the highest degree level. That's great. They know, they have the knowledge. They are the most knowledgeable about the subjects, but they don't tend to know how to actually teach and impart. And that's a place where I struggle with academia, because I've seen a lot of colleagues who are so keenly aware when it comes to their area of study, but they are so unaware when it comes to educating young people.
Hmm. When you said students cannot learn if their needs are not met, and safety is a need.
Mm-hmm.
So when you are threatening emotionally, when you are causing trauma, that child cannot learn
No.
because they feel unsafe with you.
Mm-hmm.
I've never thought about it that way. I mean, I know that safety is a need, but I think, again, I think we just forget because we don't talk about this. So we don't talk about it. So it's like an opportunity. I mean, so it's like, well, I get this inherently because I feel like very connected to you in the way that I see teaching and our responsibility to human beings. But just having this conversation with you is so valuable because I never had it when I was, and it's not that we never talked about like anything even close to it. And I really loved my education, but it is not a priority in education, in teaching teachers how to teach, in dealing with young people and people, and especially with the power dynamic,
Mm-hmm.
how to do that responsibly, safely. And so, yeah, it just really hit me. I was like, wow, like safety is a need, and you're and putting someone in danger doesn't look the way you think it always does.
Mm-mm, no. And so it's this very fine balance of making sure that we are giving students what they need, pushing them so that they can learn new material, but also making sure that we are a safe space. I'll never forget, maybe in my third year at Howard, I was directing um, a musical review, and a student came up to me after. She said, "I think I can say this to you." I said, "Okay, what's up?" She said, "I really didn't like when you said whatever I said. I really didn't like it when you said that in front of the group." And I said, "Okay, I'm sorry that I put you in an uncomfortable position. And I'm sorry I said words that hurt you. Let's talk about what my intent was and let me apologize to you in front of the group." And she's like, "What?"
Hmm.
I said, "Yeah." I said, that wasn't my intent. I said, whether I intended to or not, I did that thing. And she said, "Well, no professor's ever said that before." I said, "Well, that's okay. We're going to try to change that." I said, "But you are an adult, a consenting adult in this space. And so we have to have some form of respect. You have to have it. Well, my preference is that you have the comfortability to come talk to me so that we can work together in a way that is effective for the both of us and not just for me."
Hmm.
I think oftentimes, and some of this tide is changing, but oftentimes pedagogy is different. But when we talk about andragogy, which is collegiate level stuff, we're teaching adults. We're teaching adults. They are adults. And a lot of times it's, oh, these kids, these kids. Yes, they're younger than us. Yes, they could be the age of our children, but they are still adults. And we are helping them to transition into the fullness of their adulthood. So, another part of our responsibility is helping them to understand how they can operate in their adulthood.
Hmm.
And because I do not want them to walk out into the world operating in fear, operating in lack, I cannot train them in fear and lack. I can't do that because then they go out into the world and operate in the same way.
And you said you didn't want to be a teacher. I listened to you talk and I'm like, wait, oh yeah, that's right. She said in this interview she didn't want to be a teacher a long
Nope.
like, okay, so how did you get there? Like, oh, because you're in DC, right? And you said I don't want to sing again. Like you've had it. You're like
Mm-hmm.
you've so had it. You move with your friend Nikosha, is that right?
Uh-huh.
It's such a beautiful
Yeah.
name. Okay, so you're there and what happens?
So I need to pay bills. And so I talked to a friend of mine before I got here. Another one of our friends from middle school was here. And I was like, "Hey girl, like, can you help me get a job at the restaurant where you work?" And so she put in a good word for me. I was going to have an interview on down the line. My second day here, remember I said, I need money. I got to pay bills. I moved here um, with 2 bags, a one-way ticket, and maybe $150.
Ooh.
So second day here, I said, "Okay, girl, it doesn't matter whether you want to do the thing or not." A couple of my friends had told one of their mentors that I was coming to town. He was like, "Oh, have her come sing for me." I was like, "Okay, whatever." And so 2 days in, I went and sang for him. He told me to stay for rehearsal that night. And that day also happened to be the day that he was casting the workshop for his, he was doing a workshop that summer for a Christmas musical that he was writing. And so I wound up being cast in the workshop and being a part of his singing group, the Voices of Inspiration. This is Dr. Nolan Williams. And so I did that. I worked that summer as a hostess, but because I had the gig with the workshop, I couldn't work evenings. And I was only maybe getting 2 mornings of hostessing a week.
Mm.
What am I going to do with that?
Yeah.
Nothing. So it's like, okay, got to do something else. Started nannying. And that worked well for a little while. And then by about October, November, I was like, I can't do this. There were many reasons. Can't do it. All right, what else can you do? So I spent a lot of my childhood, teenage years, assisting my mother in the classroom. During the summers, I did music for elementary schoolers. And during the school year, like when they were opening a computer lab at my church, and I taught computer classes to elders. It's like, okay, you can teach. We want flexibility, so let's get a job subbing in the public school system. Applied for several counties, started subbing in several counties. A long-term gig came up in Montgomery County, Maryland. The music teacher was retiring in December, and they needed a long-term sub for January to June. I was like, okay, I think I can do this. Let's just do it because it's a steady paycheck. And so I wound up being the long-term sub that semester, and they asked me to stay. So I stayed. I was there teaching elementary school music.
Oh, God bless you. God bless you.
Mm-hmm. For 2 additional years, I helped direct the musicals that they did. The third musical, was it the third one? Yeah, I directed that one. So then I left there because I was like, no, I can't keep doing this. I want to perform. Bills. So I started teaching preschool music classes because they gave me a little bit more flexibility. I taught preschool music classes. I started teaching private voice again. All the while I'm working at a church. And so had church jobs, had jobs teaching classes, like preschool classes, did gigs here and there, taught private voice. A friend of mine started calling me and asking me to do master classes at Howard University, because he felt like the students needed a woman's perspective because there were no women teaching voice at the university in the musical theater area at that time. And of course, most of the folks in the program are female identifying. So started doing master classes, and I was like, God, universe, all of y'all, I want to be here. And so next year or so, a position came open as a full-time lecturer. I applied for that, and I was there at Howard. I got there, and then the pandemic happened, and So I was there for 5 years total. Um, 2 years as a lecturer in the area, three additional years, still a lecturer, but leading the musical theater program. Pre-COVID, I started my own business, teaching voice lessons, but also I had summer musical theater camps for the young folks.
Hmm.
So I left Howard in May of last year now. It's 2025. And I am now at St. Mary's College in Southern Maryland, teaching. I have a choir, I have voice students, and I get to music direct musical theater shows. And next semester, I'll be starting a class that's a sort of synthesis class, doing some ensemble pieces, some solo duets, some ensemble pieces from musicals, and helping hopefully the integrated performing arts students really start piecing together how to combine singing, acting, and dancing.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And there's something special about your college, right? You had told me it's the first something, right?
It's the only public honors college in the nation. I've been blessed in that I've been afforded the opportunity to be in a lot of spaces that are the first of the only. When I was at Howard University in the musical theater program, for the majority of the time that I was there, we were the only BFA musical theater program on the campus of an HBCU. Now there are two, one at Howard and one at Morgan State University. Um, when we talk about this sort of hard work thing, I I told my mom maybe a month or so ago, I said, when I look back on my life, I can say I'm all right if I'm never the first to do anything else. Um,
Hmm.
in my lifetime, I've been the first Black woman to lead the musical theater program at Howard University, the first Black woman to conduct the American Pops Orchestra. And I got to conduct and record a PBS uh, documentary sort of thing called Black Broadway.
Hmm.
And I was the first Black woman to lead the music and creative arts department or ministry at Metropolitan AME Church
Hmm.
in Washington, D.C., the oldest piece of Black owned land in the city.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go find the Pops concert. I'm gonna have to go find these things now. Or maybe you could send me links or something because
Yeah.
wow, that is so amazing. It's so amazing. So you have a philosophy when it comes to teaching voice that may be
Mm-hmm.
different from some people that as choir directors especially we can tend to look at the whole ensemble,
Mm-hmm.
right? And how do we serve the needs of that whole ensemble, and how are they going to perform great for audiences, and what is your approach to teaching both privately and being a choir director?
I search for the personal vocal fingerprint. I believe that every voice is unique in its own way, and that we should train it to remain a unique part of the vocal scape of the vocal universe. Um, Oftentimes in choir, especially, we find that we want to shape the sound so we sound as one. Yes. However, I believe that if the voice is not trained as its own individual being first, it is difficult to put that voice into the fabric of a community of singers. Um, I will say that some of my teaching has changed incredibly and been more successful as I have started teaching to the individual and training an individual voice as opposed to trying to sort of train everybody the same way.
How do you do that in a choral setting? Because I mean, I think I told you when we were talking before, like, this is my jam, like talking about, I've done some sessions on the choir director as a vocal coach, like how do we
Hmm.
meet the needs of individuals in a choral setting? And so I'm just like burning to know, like, what are things that you do to achieve what you're talking about in a group setting?
Yeah, so one of the first things I do is I ask for students to make sounds as themselves. When I'm first starting a semester, when I'm first starting with a group, I'll say, "Hey, we're going to shape the sound, but I need to know who you are as an individual first. So just sing.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to do some warm up, we're going to do some technical stuff, but just sing for now." And so that's where I start. Just sing. And yes, there are things we can talk about vowel shaping. Those are sort of general standard sort of principles. Vowel shaping, the breath. But in understanding the breath, understanding where it sits in every body, when we talk about where I tend to begin my veering off the path is when we talk about body alignment. Some people call it posture. I don't like to call it that. I call it body alignment because my body is not aligned in the same way that yours is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as a black person, black women especially often have S curves in their spine, and we can be told to overtuck so that the body is in what someone would think the correct posture. So aligning the body according to what your body wants to do, because every body is different. um Finding the way the resonators are working within your space, and so it might take a little more listening. And what I also tell my students is that if I call on you and give you a note in rehearsal, it is not to single you out. It is because the note is simply just for you. It's not for everybody, and that's okay. So I think that's a good place to start. It goes back to relationship and finding the humanity first. Because once we're able to identify these students and identify what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, how we can use their individual vocal fingerprint to perhaps shape the sound that we're looking for. I think when we begin to listen to the individuals and use that as the fabric to create the community, I think we are in better shape than we are when we say we must all sound the same.
Mm-hmm. Is there any question I didn't ask you or that you wish I would have asked you, or is there something that you have not shared yet that you would like to share at the end of our time together?
Yeah, one thing that I think we've discussed in our bit of chatting with each other is this idea of joy and having yourself be the last thing. It goes back to this idea of the personal vocal fingerprint. It goes back to the idea of finding the humanity. I want to lift that, whether it is in personal space, whether it is in community space, whether it is in singing space, whether that be solo singing space or communal or choral singing space. We must understand who we are first so that we can contribute fully to the whole and to the goal of the whole. Um, Oftentimes we think about, or we're taught to put ourselves on the back burner or to sort of think of ourselves later or last.
Mm.
No, please. That is not how you thrive. You thrive when your cup is full and you pour and you give from the overflow of your cup.
Hmm.
We can do that in the singing and the choral setting, when we ensure that the full of a person's humanity is respected and acknowledged.
What a journey you have taken us on. I'm feeling uh, I mean, I also went to bed late last night, which is, it's also ADHD person here, isn't it? I went to bed, but so my yawning is like, oh God, but also I'm feeling so emotionally like sort of exhausted, but energized at the same time
Mm-hmm.
because of everything we've went through. And I feel so privileged, so honored to get to talk to you and for you to share all the things that you've shared, for you to open up and just to share your life and to be so vulnerable and to bring joy into the world. And you're just amazing. So thank you so much for this time together.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a joy chatting with you. I thank you for the platform to share my story and to share my thoughts on education and the way that I do things that might be a little off the beaten path.